On a cold morning in Nova Scotia, Rick Lagina returned to Oak Island, a place that has swallowed secrets for over 200 years. Men have died here. Millions were spent. Every search ended the same way: failure. Most people believed the treasure was never real, until something changed. Away from the cameras, Rick uncovered information that challenged everything they knew: ancient symbols, precise measurements, and evidence pointing not to pirates, but to the Knights Templar. Now, a hidden underground vault, believed to be worth $98 million, may be buried deeper than anyone ever searched before. And this time, the clues aren't legends. They're calculated. In this video, we reveal what Rick Lagina finally discovered, and why Oak Island may be hiding history's most protected secret. Subscribe and stay with us. You won't want to miss what comes next. The announcement came quietly, almost too quietly for what it meant. After months of sonar mapping and failed boreholes, Rick's team finally hit something that didn't fit: a void precisely 180 feet below the swamp zone, sealed and perfectly preserved. The chamber had no record in any prior excavation data. According to every geological model, it shouldn't even exist. But there it was, a hidden pocket cut into the bedrock right beneath a tunnel that connected directly to the original money pit alignment. For Rick, it wasn't just another dig site. It was the anomaly they'd been chasing for years, the one that didn't belong. Initial scans came back strange. Metallic density readings were too heavy for natural formations, too organized for coincidence. It wasn't a single mass of debris. It was layered, intentional, designed, and it ran parallel to a secondary shaft that had never appeared on 18th-century recovery maps. That was the first real sign that this wasn't the work of any early settler or prospector. Someone had engineered this centuries before. Rick's first words after the readings came through were caught on camera. This could be the original vault. When the team finally broke through the chamber's outer seal, the first thing they saw was stone, hand-carved, water-worn, and marked. Sitting at the base of the entryway was a limestone slab no larger than a door, bearing a symbol none of them mistook for coincidence: a weathered cross pate, the same cross used by the Knights Templar. The carving wasn't recent. It had the erosion marks of centuries. Carbon dating later confirmed what Rick already suspected. The tablet was older than any colonial settlement, older even than the first European maps of the region. What truly stunned the researchers wasn't the cross itself, but how the stone was preserved. Marine clay had been used to seal it perfectly, a technique known to prevent saltwater corrosion. That level of foresight suggested whoever built this chamber understood both geology and engineering far beyond their era. Along one edge, almost invisible under calcified buildup, was a series of etchings, coded lines, and symbols that archaeologists would later find matched those hidden in Scotland's Rosslyn Chapel, a structure often tied to Templar lore. When Marty Lagina saw the match, his expression told the whole story. This isn't speculation anymore. It's the first real physical proof of the Templar movement right here on Oak Island. The link was no longer conceptual. It was tangible, etched into stone and protected beneath layers of earth for 600 years. But what followed would drive the discovery far past imagination. As the chamber cut deeper into the bedrock, the radar crew performed another scan. This time, the readings returned in flawless, evenly spaced patterns, metallic echoes pulsing again and again through the cavity. Whatever lay buried below wasn't accidental. The imaging revealed organized rows, forms far too precise to be natural rock or debris. Rick called for a micro-drill probe, a careful procedure designed to retrieve trace samples without triggering a collapse. When the drill surfaced, the collection tray revealed everything. Quartz powder blended with tiny golden flecks, not raw gold, but processed, shaped, melted, ancient, the sort of work seen in artifacts, not money. For the first time in years, Rick set aside his usual restraint and spoke words that would spread across every Oak Island forum worldwide. We might not be hunting myth anymore. We're standing right above it. That one sentence shifted everything. If the gold hidden beneath Oak Island had been refined centuries before Europeans reached Nova Scotia, then this stopped being a simple treasure hunt. It became a pursuit of forgotten knowledge. The team needed explanations, historical context, to clarify who hid it and for what reason. But those answers wouldn't rise from the soil. They would surface from history itself. Inside the French naval archives at La Rochelle, a neglected 1701 chart appeared as a maritime historian examined old colonial trade paths. Worn and delicate, the map carried a title that made Rick and Marty stop cold the instant they read it. L'Île Perdue, the Island of Lost Gold. After correcting for centuries of magnetic drift, the coordinates aligned with Oak Island's outline almost perfectly. But the real shock wasn't the place. Notes along the edges, written in a strange blend of Latin and Old French, referenced Louvre du Temple, the temple's coffers sealed beneath layers of engineered trap stone designed to collapse if tampered with. When the brothers compared the drawing to their excavation grid, the resemblance was chilling. The chamber they had just accessed sat almost exactly where the map marked the primary cache. Marty called it an unbelievable coincidence, but Rick disagreed. Someone in France had sketched this long before Oak Island officially existed. That meant the vault's secret lived on well after the Templars fell, possibly carried by displaced sailors who crossed the Atlantic with fragments of the order's concealed wealth. Research kept circling one name repeatedly struck from French port records: La Rochelle's Phantom, a vessel rumored to have vanished during the purge of 1307. Some scholars believed it escaped under another name and slipped into western waters. The La Rochelle chart seemed to confirm it, implying Oak Island was never accidental. It was the endpoint of a deliberate journey, a refuge for something the French crown was never supposed to find. Deep inside the chamber, the excavation continued. As workers removed layers of sediment and stone from the newly charted passage, one noticed a faint shimmer locked within the limestone. What first looked like a strand of wire turned out to be part of a small brass chain fused into the rock like a fossil. Once cleaned and magnified, the links showed delicate engravings, each shaped as the Templar cross. This wasn't decoration. It was ceremonial regalia, likely belonging to the elaborate chains worn by senior knights. Lab testing confirmed it was neither colonial nor modern. Its alloy matched 13th-century French metallurgy, identical to chains uncovered in Templar burial grounds near Poitiers. Every detail, from the soldering method to the metal purity, pointed directly to medieval Europe. The consequences were enormous. The artifact existed more than a century before any documented European arrival in the New World. That single chain could redefine Oak Island's story. But what rested beneath it changed everything once more. As the team carefully brushed away soil surrounding the object, they uncovered a compact lead container, small enough to cradle in both hands, yet so weathered it looked close to breaking apart. Its joints were sealed with hardened wax and resin, every seam shaped by hand. Inside, remarkably preserved by centuries of airless mud, lay a folded piece of parchment, still stuck to a thin coating of wax. When conservators gradually opened it under tightly controlled humidity, faint dark ink slowly appeared, flowing lines of medieval French script reaching forward through time. The translation sent chills across the room. The writing described l'Arche gardée, the Great Ark, and warned of l'oculus sub rosa, the secret beneath the rose. These terms were not accidental. Both were known Templar code expressions. The Great Ark referred to relics carried from Jerusalem, while the rose symbolized the sacred veil of secrecy, protecting divine knowledge. Paleographers compared the handwriting against known Templar clerical samples held in the Archives Nationales de France. One match stood apart, a scribe active in Paris, up until the exact day the order was condemned in 1307. That connection placed the parchment directly within the era of the final Grand Master himself. Yet there was something even more extraordinary, a concealed message. Through infrared imaging, linguists detected subtle shifts in the opening letters of every line. When assembled, they formed an acrostic spelling Domus Dei, Latin meaning House of God. For Templar scholars, that phrase carried deeper meaning than faith alone. It pointed toward the order's inner sanctum, the place where their most sacred relics were protected before disappearing from Europe. Rick stood quietly over the translation table before finally speaking. Whoever buried this never wanted it found. They wanted it remembered, but only by those who knew how to recognize it. The chain, the parchment, the map, they were not isolated discoveries. Together, they created one continuous trail running from medieval France across the Atlantic and ending beneath the marshes of Nova Scotia. For the Laginas, the meaning was unmistakable. The vault was not myth, it was intentional. It had been designed, guarded, and concealed for purposes extending far beyond simple gold. That understanding changed everything. The proof wasn't only historical, it was mechanical. Whoever created these signals possessed advanced knowledge of engineering, navigation, and concealment far ahead of their era. If the artifacts were designed to guide the team here, then the structure below may have been engineered to block all others. With that reasoning, the crew adjusted their borehole positioning and began probing the zone just past the vault's alignment. What they found contradicted every previous survey. The next chamber was different from anything before it. It wasn't rough stone or collapsed fill. It was engineered. As the drill advanced deeper through sediment, the borehole camera exposed something remarkable. A framework of wood and brass woven directly into the bedrock. This was not natural. It was intentional construction, a defensive system. The timbers were connected to brass pulleys and water valves, arranged in a cross formation, forming an intricate counterweight mechanism similar to systems used in medieval ship rigging. Each movement triggered another, forming a mechanical network. One incorrect move, and the entire chamber could flood or fail. Whoever built it never intended the vault to be accessed. They intended it to be defended. The sophistication of the workmanship seemed astonishing for the 14th century. Every joint, each angle, and all brass elements showed a level of precision beyond what was expected for that era. When maritime engineering specialists studied the structure, they identified similarities to medieval ship-based pulley systems used for anchors and cargo handling. That insight led to a powerful conclusion. These were not the efforts of ordinary stonemasons. They were the work of seafaring Templars who escaped Europe and adapted their nautical knowledge to construct an underground fortress. This discovery completely reshaped Rick's view of the location. The Oak Island structure was never a random build. Its layout carried clear signs of naval engineering, pointing to sailors who meant to hide something forever. As debris was cautiously cleared, Rick shared an observation that summed up the team's rising unease. We're not dealing with a vault meant to be found. This was built to destroy itself if anyone tries to get inside. The realization hit hard. Soon, the entire crew began calling it a guardian mechanism, a highly advanced defense system standing in their way. Every adjustment of the drilling gear felt like a risk against centuries of planning, with each vibration tracked closely to prevent setting off a disastrous chain reaction. Still, the team hadn't yet realized the underground system was only one piece of a much larger puzzle. The final clue was above ground. Using advanced LiDAR scans to map the island's surface, they uncovered something startling. Beneath thick growth and uneven terrain lay a deliberate pattern of carved stone markers. These were not natural formations or leftover glacial stones. Each marker had been intentionally placed, forming a precise geometric design stretching from Smith's Cove through the money pit and into the swamp. When rendered digitally, the layout formed a perfectly proportioned cross. The pattern held both symbolic meaning and practical function. Every crossing point matched a known dig site or underground feature previously written off as natural. When Marty linked the site data and aligned the image with celestial positioning, the pattern closely mirrored the Orion constellation. That same star formation appeared in historic Templar navigation records. The accuracy was too exact to dismiss. It appeared the Templars had applied astronomical knowledge to design the vault, embedding a star map directly into the landscape, readable only by those trained in celestial navigation. Rick stood frozen as the pattern finalized on the screen. The money pit, Smith's Cove, and the newly uncovered vault aligned with Orion's 3 brightest stars. The meaning was staggering. Oak Island wasn't just a hiding place, it was a device, an astronomical code translated into physical geography. Every shaft, every chamber, every artifact was part of a carefully orchestrated system protecting a single central point. What had always been thought of as treasure might only be the surface layer of something far more significant, a structure built with ceremonial precision. As drilling continued along the newly identified crossline, the bit broke into another empty space. Unlike earlier chambers, this one was lined with smooth, polished limestone instead of rough timber. At its center stood a sealed archway marked by a striking symbol, a fully opened rose wrapped in twisting vines and overlapping crosses. The carving was more than decoration. It exactly matched the rose cross symbol later adopted by the Rosicrucians, a group many historians believe descended from surviving Templars. The archway's position confirmed the team's suspicions. They had reached the main vault entrance, the heart of everything the island was built to protect. Before any physical approach, scanning instruments revealed what waited beyond. Metal density readings surged to levels never seen during the investigation, dense, organized, and fully contained. Whatever was sealed behind the rose-marked gateway was metallic and present in massive quantity. The magnetic field sensors struggled to stabilize. The sheer concentration of gold and alloy metals disrupted the instruments entirely. The volume surpassed anything ever detected in the money pit. For the first time, the data removed all doubt. This was no myth or hopeful theory. It was real. The readings showed a tightly packed solid mass, containers and chests likely stacked together inside a single sealed stone chamber. Rick chose to stop every mechanical drilling effort at once. No one wanted to risk triggering another defensive collapse system. Conservation experts were called in immediately. Using tiny cameras and non-invasive imaging tools, they cautiously fed a fiber optic scope through a slim borehole into the area beyond the rose-marked arch. The live feed flickered on, revealing a narrow corridor with smooth limestone walls packed with centuries of settled sediment. Then, as the camera adjusted its focus, a faint sparkle cut through the darkness. a flash of reflected light coming from something far below. The entire team fell quiet. That reflected glow wasn't random. It was clearly gold, unmistakable under the LED light, carrying that warm, aged sheen. As the camera held steady, more reflections appeared, ripples of golden light shining back from hidden forms. This was not a single object. There were many artifacts, perhaps dozens or even hundreds. A chamber filled with gold, sealed beneath the rose symbol, untouched for more than 600 years. Rick said nothing, but his face revealed everything: awe, disbelief, and a quiet understanding that this was more than simple wealth. It represented meaning, a message built through stone, geometry, and faith. For generations, Oak Island's story had been marked by false leads, failed digs, and brilliantly designed barriers. But now, as the camera exposed the glowing space beyond the Rose Gateway, everything came into focus. The island had never been protecting treasure for greed. It had been guarding purpose, a hidden intent meant to survive across centuries. As the image stabilized, the golden light sharpened into shapes, edges, and deliberate arrangements, carefully placed rather than scattered. Then, centered within the chamber, one object stood out clearly. It was not a chest or loose coins. It was shaped, a finely made chalice standing upright on a limestone pedestal. Even through the grainy feed, its silhouette was unmistakable. A wide bowl, a flared lip, and a central stem carved with vine motifs. Days later, when recovery teams finally brought it to the surface, a deep silence filled the room. The chalice was heavier than expected, its surface glowing not with the harsh shine of common gold, but with a softer, richer light, formed from a metal blend unfamiliar to the modern world. Laboratory analysis confirmed the unbelievable. The chalice was forged from Byzantine gold blended with Frankish silver, a metallurgical combination not seen since the 12th century. Every curve, every engraved line reflected two cultures, East and West, united not by war, but by belief, craftsmanship, and secrecy. Under magnification, a Latin inscription ran along the inner rim, Veritas sub rosa, truth beneath the rose. The phrase was central to Templar practice, symbolizing their sacred vow of silence used in confessions, later crushed by the French crown after the order's fall. It marked secrets sworn beneath the rose, never meant to be spoken aloud. Rick felt the weight of the chamber's significance settle over him. This was more than a historical object. It was a declaration, a pledge cast in gold and preserved through centuries of silence. This could be the very artifact they gave their lives to protect, he murmured, almost to himself. No one replied. Every camera, every recorder focused on that lone chalice, glowing beneath the artificial lights, its shadow stretching across generations of legend. Word of the discovery spread quickly. Within weeks, official representatives arrived from the Vatican's Department of Sacred Antiquities. They requested detailed photos, metallurgical reports, and provenance documentation. This was not casual inquiry. It was formal, deliberate, and confidential. Rick's team complied, submitting preliminary findings according to established archaeological procedures. Days later, a specialist from the Vatican Historical Archives made direct contact, delivering news that stunned the crew. The chalice's dimensions and inscriptions matched a sacred vessel recorded in papal documents from 1312, an object thought destroyed when Templar archives were seized and burned. According to those records, the vessel had contained relics said to have come from the early Jerusalem church, items transported from the Holy Land during the Crusades. Its final historical mention placed it under the care of the Templar Order's highest French official before the arrests began. After that, its record vanished. And now, 6 centuries later, it had reappeared beneath an island in Nova Scotia. The Vatican's involvement went beyond symbolic interest. They proposed a joint examination under international cultural heritage regulations. Legal representatives from Canada, France, and the Holy See convened to determine ownership and conservation procedures. The find had moved from television spectacle to the realm of international diplomacy. Cultural heritage laws stipulated that any pre-colonial object tied to European history could qualify for shared custodianship. But religious artifacts added another layer: ecclesiastical authority. The chalice was not merely historical. It might be consecrated property. Marty summarized it clearly. This situation was no longer just about Oak Island. Its significance was global, immediate, and undeniable. Thanks for watching. If you loved this discovery, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more amazing explorations and hidden history revelations.